Hello, my name is Jose Miguel Treviño and today I'm going to explain how human thinking and modern knowledge have developed through the different stages of society until contemporary times. In this video we're going to see deeply 5 key points: initial conceptions of knowledge, the scientific revolution, rationalism and empiricism, the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, and positivism. Most of the time we go into topics for knowledge and we tend to focus in the material inside it, like we study math and its operations and laws, ethics with its philosophical meanings and society, but there's a question that goes further than just the laws around the theme. That question is, what is knowledge? There are 3 essential elements for knowledge: truths, beliefs, and justifications. So what is knowledge? The truths divide in 2 types of them. The first truth condition consists in knowing if something is false. That means we can only know things that are true. We can't know something that is false because it will not be real knowledge. And the second truth condition explains that the truth does not require approval from anyone to be true. Truth is about knowing things how actually are, not how they are shown. In fact, knowing something gets us closer to facts and truths. P is true. Truths are not the only knowledge, there's also beliefs. Most of our knowledge truths are true without us actually knowing that truth. Maybe something is true, but we need to believe in it in order for the condition to be obeyed. For example, if we add 2 plus 2, we don't need to see, for example, 2 apples alongside 2 other apples and count them to be 4. We can just know that 2 quantities plus 2 other quantities added equals 4 quantities, without needing to prove it by the 5 senses, because it is related to rationalism. In the other side, for example, the laws of motion, we need to see them and do several experiments for proving it visually, because it is related to empiricism. Later on in the video we will crash these 2 subjects and compare them, but for now let's just say that there's a whole debate around them. In conclusion, S believes that P. Finally, we need a justification for our beliefs. How can something be true if we don't have a method or test supporting it? Let's say, for example, that George thinks that in a horse's race, the horse number 2 will win the race. George needs to justify his belief. In this case, he needs to justify why he thinks the number 2 horse will win the race. Maybe it's because the horse has won several races in a row, but the point here is that you need backing it up. S is justified in believing that P. Now what knowledge is, let's be a little bit less technical. In terms of knowledge, there are 5 types of it: intuitive, empirical, magic religious, philosophical, and scientific knowledge. Intuitive knowledge is acquired by experiencing the subject or topic, so it can be proven by the 5 senses. For example, someone can know a musical note by hearing it, getting the concept of that particular note. Empirical knowledge is based in the experiencing of things and it doesn't have a method. It doesn't explain why reality is as shown. It explains reality as it is. Magic religious knowledge consists in beliefs of people towards something supernatural or divine. The mere existence of people is its base. Philosophical knowledge is human thinking and the way humanity approaches to knowledge and existence. Finally, we have scientific knowledge, which need rigorous methods for saying something is true. It's about analyzing, observing, and reflecting the reality. It answers the question to how reality works and not why we exist. This knowledge is an important part of positivism because of the proofs and its direction, but we are going to see that later in the video. The search for knowledge in the 16th century led to important discoveries in the 17th century, where the vision from the world passed from being a metaphysical one, and even some societies from theological to a positive and scientific one. The scientific revolution meant a knowledge rupture between the Catholic Church and its teachings to methodologies that actually explain how the universe and the phenomena around us work, through laws, experimentation, and rational and empirical thinking. The increased number of universities, with their branded neoliberal arts obviously, The possibility of books to now be printed and spread quicker on the world, and other factors made possible the scientific revolution. Discoveries of the Americas was a whole game changer for the society at the time. All schemes known at the time were completely destroyed. The normal people saw that the Catholic Church had a mistake, and they said that the three continents were representing the Holy Trinity in the world, but it was obviously wrong. Another game changer was Copernicus' book on the revolution of celestial spheres. There explained that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe and all the things were rotating around it. Instead, he proposed a system where the Earth rotated towards the Sun and it was a part of a system in a galaxy. He managed to prove it, but it was obviously punished by the church. An important thinker in the scientific revolution was René Descartes, who put on the table a new way of thinking, a new method to the world, the doubt. We cannot doubt of our existence while we doubt. Galileo Galilei was the first to use a well-organized method for proving knowledge. That's why he's called the father of modern science. And another important figure was Isaac Newton, who used the basis of his research and applied it in laws in mathematics, logical reasoning, and scientific methods. He created all these laws about motion, gravitation, inertia, and speed using specific methods. Now, empiricism consists in the knowledge acquired by the experience of the five senses. All ideas come from them. It's called a posteriori knowledge. For example, it is raining outside. You can tell if it is raining either if you see it or feel the drops of water. Rationalism is about the mind concepts of all things that exist, because sometimes your senses can be a little bit tricky. First, I think, then I exist, as said by the thinker René Descartes. For example, as we said in the example of beliefs in knowledge, math is rational because the concept of quantities doesn't need to be experienced. Cogito ergo sum. This knowledge is known as a priori knowledge. The Enlightenment was revolutionary because people started to think by themselves, rather than using the knowledge from others. In past times, the church used to impose all the knowledge in basically all the world, but in the Enlightenment, they began to merge a series of thinkers that led a wave of thinking of others, thinking freely. There will be always people that stand for the others. Their actions trigger others to think differently from the ordinary system. This movement helped, of course, the scientific revolution and inspired more scientists to think independently from the church, causing more scientific development. All this crashed into the French Revolution, that was the explosion from ideas and they were all put together. The Enlightenment was the maximum expression of freedom. On modern times, we are not imposed directly by doing so, but the social media pressure and the globalization make us harder to think by ourselves. The social media is basically saying to us to think in one way, the way of the world. We should consider thinking rationally by ourselves. In the Enlightenment, there were five main thinkers. Denis Diderot, who served as chief director in the Encyclopedia. He was one of the leaders of the Enlightenment. His work, notable for his liberalism, had profound political, social, and intellectual repercussions in France just prior to the Revolution. Immanuel Kant, who was one of the most influential philosophers in the history of Western philosophy. His contributions to metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and aesthetics have had a profound impact on almost every philosophical movement that followed him. Rousseau, who remains as an important figure in the history of philosophy, both because of his contributions to political philosophy and moral psychology, and because of his influence on later thinkers. Rousseau's own view on philosophy and philosophers was firmly negative, seeing philosophers as the post hoc rationalizers of self-interest. Adam Smith, who is known for creating the concept of gross domestic product, GDP, and for his theory of compensating wage differentials. His theory of moral sentiments asserted that humans have a distinctive moral sense that enables them to distinguish between right and wrong, virtue and vice. Thomas Hobbes, who introduced a social contract theory based on the relation between the absolute sovereign and civil society. The Industrial Revolution was a transition between agricultural economy and in mass production economy. There were 6 main causes for the Industrial Revolution: capitalism, European imperialism, large market of goods, agricultural revolution, mining of resources, and the enclosure movement. The emergence of capitalism changed the way of thinking of people, which were used to mercantilism. All their goods and establishments were owned by the state. Adam Smith was this brand new system. Capitalism is a system where the people can freely business, invest, and buy by themselves. European imperialism was the acquisition of regions by European world powers as Great Britain or Spain. This allowed to get a bunch of raw materials for producing goods and products in mass. Then these products were sold back into these regions. The mass production of goods in the factories was a cause for the Industrial Revolution. The large market of goods was a very important cause of the Industrial Revolution because the products and goods were distributed around the world, helping at the same time the expansion of the industrialization of the countries. Throughout the agricultural revolution, the new techniques developed helped to the mass production of. This was also caused of the growth of population, mainly in Great Britain. This unlocked the possibility of people of leaving their farms to work in the city's factories. In mining of resources, the main resource that was used was coal. This raw material was very handy, for example, fueling steam engines on trains, ships. It was pretty much used in everything that was automatized. Great Britain was benefited because the coal on this particular country was near to the surface, so meaning it was easy. It was a really common resource all over the world. The enclosure movement led to a population increase in the cities by the increasing number of private-owned farms. The number of workers in a factory was huge, helping to the mass production once again. So let's say some important inventions. Early whiteness cotton gin enabled the rapid separation of seeds from cotton fibers. The telegraph revolutionized long-distance communication. It worked by transmitting electrical signals over a wire led between stations. The Watt steam engine was used to pump water out of mines. The locomotives was the fastest way of transporting goods from one way to another. The photography changed the way people perceive reality, with the ability of the photography to document changes in time and the reality of the physical experience of being human. People were able to be recorded. Finally, the first modern factories were very important for capitalism, and they were the way of doing mass production. Comte is the founder of positivism, a philosophical and political movement around half of the 19th century. His positivism is a political positivism. He joined both science and political philosophies in positivism. Here are 2 important statements for positivism. All knowledge regarding matters of fact is based on the positive data of experience. Positivism is well known for being a form of saying facts, proving knowledge throughout experiments. And the other statement is, beyond the realm of fact is that of pure logic and pure mathematics. The abstract thinking responds to the logic. Comte developed the law of the 3 stages, which explains the states of social transition in civilizations. Here are the 3 stages. The theological stage, which says that every society evolves in the way they state their own convictions. The human mind started to ask the first and last causes of the universe. This is where religion entered. Supernatural agents, or God, were the causes of the universe. They were military societies. The metaphysical stage is very similar to the first one. The humanity and the questions of causes are the same. The answer is different. Greek thinkers were finally taken into account. The thinking itself was the answer, called as abstract entities. Supremacy reigned in society. Finally, we have positive stage. The previous questions asked in the last 2 stages are irrelevant. The focus now is in the final stage of society, not in the phenomena but the laws around it. The absolute knowledge is now replaced by relativism. which is a characteristic of positivism. This was an industrial society. So that's it for today. You understand the human thinking throughout the history and its development, and see you next time. Bye.